Hey there! So, you want to build stuff for the web, right? Well, to do that, you've got to speak the language. Today, we're going to break down the absolute fundamentals of JavaScript, the three core building blocks that, honestly, everything else is built on top of. All right, so here's the game plan. We're going to kick things off with the absolute basics. Then we'll get into how to store your data with variables, figure out what kind of data you're even working with, and then use operators to actually make things happen. We'll even dive into a really common trap called type coercion before we wrap things up. Sound good? Let's do it. Okay, so let's think of it this way. Before you can write an epic novel, you first have to learn your ABCs, right? The same exact thing applies here. Before we can write amazing programs in JavaScript, we have to know its letters and its rules. So, the first word in our new language is something called a variable. And honestly, it's super simple. Just think of it like a labeled box you can put stuff in. It's just a place to store a piece of information that you're going to want to use later on. Could be a name, a number, you name it. Now, in modern JavaScript, you've basically got two main kinds of these boxes. First, you have let. A let variable is just a standard box. You can swap out what's inside whenever you want. But then you have const. A const variable is like a box you seal shut with superglue. Once you put something in there, that's it. It's permanent. The general rule of thumb, if you think a value might change, use let. If you know it should never ever change, use const. Oh, and a quick heads up, this is a big one. You might see this older thing called var floating around in code examples on the internet. Just know this. These days, we avoid var. It has some really quirky behaviors that can cause some super confusing bugs down the road. So do yourself a favor and just stick with let and const. All right, so we've got our labeled boxes. But what are we actually putting inside these boxes? What kind of information are we working with? Well, that brings us right to our next building block, data types. So JavaScript is what's called a dynamically typed language. Whoa, sounds complicated, right? Don't worry, it's not. All it really means is that you don't have to tell the box ahead of time what kind of stuff you're going to put in it. JavaScript is smart enough to figure it out on its own when you give it a value. This is awesome because it makes the language really flexible, but as you'll see in a minute, it means we have to be just a little bit careful. So here are the real basic ingredients. We call them primitive data types. Strings, that's just text. Numbers, you guessed it, numbers. Booleans, super simple, just true or false, like a light switch. Then you have undefined, which is what a variable is before you've put anything in it, and null, which is when you intentionally want it to be empty. Don't worry about symbol for now, it's a bit more of an advanced topic. Okay, so once you move past those simple one-item boxes, you get to the object. Think of this like a super container or a treasure chest. Instead of holding just one thing, it can hold a whole collection of related data, all organized with little labels or keys. So in this example, we have one object that describes a person, holding both their name and their age. And then we've got its cousin, the array. If an object is like a labeled collection, an array is just a straight-up, simple, ordered list of values. It's perfect for when you need to store a whole bunch of items, like a list of numbers, a list of names, whatever you need. Okay, so we've got our data. It's all neatly stored in our variable boxes. So what now? How do we actually do stuff with it? Well, that's where operators come in. These are the action words, the verbs of JavaScript. They're the tools we use to interact with and change our data. Here's a quick flyby of the main types you'll use all the time. You got your arithmetic ones for math, your comparison operators for checking if things are equal or not, logical operators for combining different checks, and of course, assignment operators, which is how we put values into our variables in the first place. All right, pop quiz time. Take a look at this. Is the text 5 the same as the number 5? I mean, they look the same to us, but what does JavaScript think? And the answer is, well, it's tricky. It actually depends on how you ask the question. If you use two equal signs, that's called loose equality. JavaScript tries to be helpful, converts the text into a number, and says, yep, they're the same. But this can lead to some really weird bugs. Using three equal signs or strict equality is way safer. It checks both the value and the data type. And since text isn't a number, it correctly says, nope, not the same. Trust me on this one. To save yourself a ton of headaches later, just make a habit of always using the triple equals. You know that weird helpful thing JavaScript did back there with the two equal signs? Well, it has a name. Type coercion. And let me tell you, it can be a real trap when you're starting out, precisely because JavaScript is trying to be a little too helpful. For example, just look at this. What in the world do you think happens here? We're asking it to take the string 5 and subtract the number 2. I mean, that's nonsense, right? The whole thing should just break, shouldn't it? Give us an error? Nope. The answer is 3. It actually works.
Wait, what? How did that even happen? You can't subtract a number from a word, can you?
And that, my friends, is the bizarre magic and also the danger of type coercion. JavaScript saw you trying to do subtraction, and it thought, hey, subtraction only works on numbers, so I'll just, turn that text 5 into a number 5 for you. It's pretty wild, and you can see how it could lead to some really confusing bugs if you're not expecting it.
Phew. Okay, we've gone through a ton. We've talked variables, data types, operators. These are literally the Lego bricks of your code. Now it's time to think about what you're going to build with them. All right, let's do a super quick recap of the absolute must-knows from all this. First, variables using let and const. That's where you store your stuff. Second, data types like string and number tell you what kind of stuff is in your containers. Third, operators are how you actually do things with your data. And last but not least, watch out for that sneaky type coercion and always, always use strict equality with the triple equals to keep your code predictable. So there you have it. You've basically just learned the alphabet and the core grammar of a new language. So the only question left is, what's the first sentence you're going to write? What amazing thing will you build first?